Greetings. Today's talk focuses on primarily two areas, but we do have some cleanup material afterwards. The first is we take a look at battery degradation issues when it comes to Tesla versus BYD Daimler on trucks, as well as the Nissan Leaf. The second thing we take a look at today is status of the buyout. What's going on in terms of the buyout and the noticeable 5% drop in the stock price yesterday. This is Greg for Tesla Fan Insight. Thanks once again for joining us. If this is your first time on our channel, please take time to like and subscribe. Any comments also appreciated, and I definitely can see anytime you guys say hello, but we'll definitely respond to you at the end of the show, especially if you have questions that I can answer while still on. Also, please note we're on Patreon. Could definitely use a buck or two of support if you would, you know, look forward to any and all comments that you might have. There's one of the goals of my show has been one to make sure we do stories on trucks, because that's sort of been one of the things that's made our name. We keep track of statistics, and it turns out that BYD is one of the areas we look at, in particular BYD and its relationship to Tesla when it comes to trucks. Many users considering Tesla products are actually currently using BYD products or are sort of leaning towards that. So it's always interesting to look both at Daimler and BYD to see how this whole thing is going to play out. So one of the constant show-ups in the press is that currently BYD is the largest numeric provider of electric vehicles in the world. They start out at very, very low mileage, maybe 50 miles or so, and then all the way up to, you know, let's say 100-mile trucks, and then bouncing into 150-mile automobiles as well. So BYD is sort of the largest player globally. They're based in China, and pretty much once a week, once every other week, there's new knowledge of what's going on with them. Another strategy element of what BYD has done that I guess is kind of unique is that they've elected to set up assembly plants in Carlsbad, California, as well as in Canada. There may be other locations in Europe, but those are the primary two that I know about that's fueling their expansion. Now, what's interesting is that BYD has sort of studied Tesla's technology, and for the unpatented stuff has been sort of following that track to deliver solutions that are reflective of what Tesla is allowing to be seen in the open marketplace. They've successfully achieved, I think, a lot. From what I can tell, their biggest implementations are in garbage trucks as well as in electric buses. What's nice in both cases is that it doesn't take a lot of range, and you can recharge midstream if there are any issues, or even schedule that recharge so that it can be handled better. It's been suggested that buses are actually a great implementation for electric because you don't have the weight constraints or stopping to recharge constraints that you have in other forms of vehicles that have to move around. So I think in general, they're operating fairly smart in what they're doing. Another element of BYD's strategy is something called first mover advantage. It's an interesting situation because if you're the first one to enter, you actually perhaps grab a customer, and that customer may have sort of difficulty unhooking from you because of the contractor relationship and the commitment they've made to parts. Kind of like what Microsoft did in terms of how they set it up so everybody was using Microsoft products, and even though they might be crappy, it costs you so much money to change that you're inclined to stick around with what you had. So what I wanted to, so BYD is a fascinating company also because one of the China strategies out there is to get to market quickly and very cheaply in terms of products, and then worry about the fix later if it doesn't work out. So we've actually covered that in a place called Albuquerque, New Mexico. They're actually having some severe difficulties with buses, for example, whose batteries don't charge. And so there's been efforts by them to actually exit those contracts given the lack of performance experience in the case of BYD. The other sort of look, so basically BYD also shows up in Canada with a company called Loblaws. They have a semi-truck that goes 100 miles, and that vehicle has successfully garnered both contractual relationship and initial deliveries to the grocery store chain there. One of the things you'll notice about Daimler as well as BYD is that when you go into a place like Canada where, let's say, half to 3/4 of the year you're operating below freezing, a lot of owners of EVs have articulated the fact that when you're in that freezing or below zone, you trend towards maybe between 30 and 50% battery range. So I'm fascinated to hear that when Loblaw signed both Tesla and BYD, I was really surprised, because the problem you have with a battery is that if you have 100 miles of range, that allows you to, let's say, bring groceries from a distribution center to a grocery store, and then you have to go back, or maybe hit a couple of stores and go back. And so what I was fascinated by or intrigued by is their order volume was fairly low, and that low order volume facilitates a process where, you know, they can get started, see how well it works, and order more if it works, don't order more if it doesn't, and there's a Tesla backup as Tesla starts to produce. I was intrigued by this because, well, what if you have a route that sets up during the summer to work well with that 100-mile range, and then you get into the winter and that range is now dropped to 50 miles? You know, kind of what do you do in that circumstance? And so, hence, I think it's interesting that they chose to order 3 or 4 trucks, pay a premium for them because they were getting a special discount from the local authorities for using electric trucks. And so it's not a huge, it costs, but not off the chart of the full bill that they would have to pay normally. So I thought this was an interesting circumstance because there's a lot of press reports about Tesla being eclipsed by, be it Daimler, be it BYD, or even the Nissan Leaf, and the fact that there's so much penetration, but many of those Leaf owners who are tired of the sub 100-mile range and the challenges that go with that are making a change. Now, there's a piece of data that's come out from Daimler that we've talked about that really influences both Leaf and BYD, and I call it battery degradation or battery fatigue. So basically what happens is if you have cells, those cells, if you're using all 100 miles on a constant basis, there's no rest for those cells, so therefore you sort of beat the crap out of them. Daimler is finding that after 3 years, there's not much useful range left in those, and they have to be recycled and new batteries put in where they were previously. So I'm fascinated by sort of this circumstance because as you know, one of the things as an owner that you have to assess is how are you going to manage your battery. So one of my most experienced advisors, his name is Damien, he's on his second Tesla. He had a number 5000 in terms of Model S's. He just sold that and now has a Model 3. We were comparing notes on how he uses his car, and what he pointed out, he kind of explained to me, process on how he does his thing. One of the things he talked about is that pretty much he leaves the car at home during the week, and he actually makes a point of biking to work. And when he's in that circumstance, he will make a point of actually going to leave his charging at about 70% during the week. And then when he's using a car during the weekend, he'll push it up to the 90% charge rate that is recommended by Tesla. So the goal here is that you get to give the battery a break, cells a break, so that the battery can choose which cells to use. And by giving those cells a break, you help elongate the life. The challenge with all this is if you're in a situation, if you're in a situation where you have a bad deal, which is low mileage, and you have to use all of your miles on a constant basis, you now have a situation where you potentially have battery degradation, and we've seen that with the Nissan Leaf. As much as 3 years later, you lose about 60% of your range. Now, this is tough because basically all of these competitors that have low range are stuck, and it just doesn't work because the batteries suffer from those that heavy or overuse. So, you know, this has been the case with the Leaf, and I believe it's the case. Daimler's talked about this, and I believe that the folks at BYD are experiencing a similar experience, where hopefully you get a decent amount of dollars left over once those batteries are recycled. So, long-winded statement to say, with Tesla's ability to do 300 to 500 miles, you can use the truck for 100, 150 miles, still have rest for the battery, reducing degradation, and overall longer battery life, longer distance for your vehicles, etc. So it's amazing to me how Tesla in numeric sales could be behind competitors who have sprinted ahead, but at the same time could end up with a winning situation in that competitors don't have the battery technology you know, to hang in there. Let's also note the Chinese are also notorious for pretty bad quality, particularly early in the cycle. So that's been seen and impacting how well they're doing. The next thing I wanted to cover today is kind of what's going on with the buyout news. As you all know, Tesla's stock price went from about 370 to about 350 yesterday. I just wanted to highlight the fact that you know, it's my belief that the stock will meander back into the 340s where it was pre this announcement by Elon Musk. I think the next bump for the stock will be associated with the next round of either higher production of the Model 3 or a new earnings announcement that reflects Tesla's move to profitability that he's anticipated. I still think he might be able to get the buyout done. I'm hoping he isn't able to, because the buyout part would be the easy part. The hard part is, what do you do about working capital that's necessary to grow the company out in terms of the new factories, etc., when all your debt capacity is consumed in that you're already paying debt payments for a large amount of debt that you're holding. And so those debt payments sort of crimp your ability to get the capital you need to build out new products and factories needed to really have Tesla jump up into the zone of performance that it's capable of. So, interesting circumstances. I can understand a lot of you have talked about the fact that he wants freedom to do his thing. Another concept that had been shared was that Elon was talking about the fact that current stockholders could retain their stocks, but it turns out that evidently if you go more than 2,000 folks who are investors, the disclosure requirements are the same as if the company was public. So I don't know if, you know, he has more flexibility at that stage, but I thought it was another interesting data point that was shared relative to the likelihood of him being able to pull off this buyout. Again, he might be able to do it. I hope he can't, but it's part of him getting his MBA on the fly in terms of having a history of what does and does not work in this space. Beyond that, I just wanted to say that the next big milestone that we're all looking forward to with the Model 3 is to have demand for the high-end vehicles satiated within the US and Canada, and then starting the delivery process for Europe. As you all know, I'm eager for that one because the European price of $8 a gallon for gas, you know, really, you know, gives more of a value proposition of why you should do this car than what is being experienced currently in the United States. So, you know, Edwin, I appreciate your comment regarding the SEC issues. I believe that the fact that he was exploring with the board a week before he made the announcement, the buyout idea, and he's been talking with other companies like one of the large hedge funds in Japan a year before about this, makes it clear that there's definitely an exploration that was going on. And the SEC is notoriously long on how long it takes for them to review stuff and actually take any kind of action. So there might be SEC issues, but I just think they're minor, and that he'll float by those pretty easily. Finally, I wanted to note that this is our Friday show. We're planning on being on Sunday again, diving into any and all issues that might have showed up between here and there. In particular, we're a truck-focused entity, so bringing forward issues that others may be having with trucks and their process, is likely our direction. I wanted to thank all of you for taking time out of your busy Friday to say hello, as well as to jump on for comments and another show. Again, please, reminder, don't forget 20 leg lifts per leg with a 5-pound weight to help strengthen your quads and reduce the chance that you need knee replacement surgery, etc. I'm doing them myself, even if I don't have the 5-pound weights, and it feels good. Again, wanted to thank you for sharing some time with us. Tschüss, Max, German, au revoir, French, the Hebrew, Hoda Hafez, and enough respect, walk good man. Thanks for the comment there, Edwin. I think as a dancer, you don't have to worry about that. Mr. Malele, good to see you from South Africa. Thanks for visiting with us again. Actually, if you could send us any photos at our Tesla Fan Insight on Facebook of what the EV world looks like in South Africa, I think that'd be kind of interesting to add for us to all get a look at what's happening in different parts of the world, as we've done with our friends in Sweden and other places. Hey, that's a good idea. I think I'll work on that, Jerry. Thanks for the idea there. At any rate, thanks once again for joining us. Look forward to our next. Please leave comments below, if you will. And might be worth noting. Have a great day. Thanks, and bye for now.